Hello everyone, this is Braslo and welcome to my Death Knight build. In this build, we're gonna focus on utilizing these beautiful Death Knight twin axes, as well as its alter ego, which is none other than the long-hafted Death Knight Axe. The best thing about these axes is that you can actually use both of them at once with the proper stat attunement or talisman use, which means that in case you're bored of one or the other, you can quickly just switch over to the other and you won't really be losing that much damage. For this first part of the video, I'm going to focus on making a build that is more specialized about making the twin axes good, while the other part of the video is going to be specialized more about creating a build more suited and specialized around the long-hafted axe. So starting out with the twin axes, which you might have already heard of or seen due to their very satisfying and cool looking blink bolt spin to win attack. These things are an absolute beast and are actually pretty simple to build. So for our stats, we're going to be using dexterity as our main stat with faith as our secondary stat to boost it up as much as we can. My strength is 24 just to hit the strength requirement for the long-hafted axe, so I can use both of them. But in case you're missing some stat points and don't want to go all the way to 165, you can invest them someplace else, especially if all you care about is just the twin axes. Otherwise, 20 mind and 20 endurance, just to let us spam the Ash of War just a while longer. 52 vigor, so usually I go with 60. This build is kind of heavier due to me trying to soft gap both dexterity as well as faith, and even putting some extra point into strength just so I can wield both of the axe types, but you don't really need to do that. So in case you're looking for that extra vigor, you can absolutely invest into vigor instead. Now, I've been playing around different types of stats, as it's actually got a C scaling in strength and D scaling in dex, which would make you think that investing into strength instead would be a little better. But due to the axes actually being dual wielded and having a lot of consecutive attacks, as well as lightning damage actually scaling off of dexterity and not faith or strength, I chose to use dex instead of strength for the twin axes specifically, while strength is going to be used for the other build. But even if you choose strength and still want to wield both of the weapons, you can actually do that. From my testing, I spent like the entire of yesterday trying to figure out which stat is actually better. From my testing, there doesn't seem to be that much of a difference. But I did end up seeing better results with dexterity, specifically with the twin axes. For our talismans, we're going to be using the most important three is the Lightning Scorpion Charm to raise our lightning attack, but lower damage negation, so keep it in mind for the DLC in case you're getting your ass kicked. Otherwise, Winged Sword Insignia to raise attack power with successive attacks, and for the same thing, we're also using Millicent's Prosthesis with the added dexterity boost on top, as well as the Two-Finger Heirloom, which is kind of a bonus. I would recommend more that you use something like Alexander's Shard. The good thing about this is because the axes are scaling off of faith as well, we can actually max out our faith to use some of the death lightning spell for a little bit of that extra Death Knight RP in case you're interested into that. But also say you don't even want to invest that much into faith, which isn't even that much of a problem if you don't want to invest into faith as your other sort of main stat. I would still recommend you go at least for 33 or 25 so that you get classic buff combo, which is Howl of Shabriri or Flame Grant Me Strength, and then the Golden Vow, which boosts your damage even more. Specifically with Golden Vow, you get also damage negation, which kind of helps counter, at least for the beginning of the boss fight, the damage negation that you have lowered from the Scorpion Charm. Also, we're going to be using our Flask of Wondrous Physick to boost our damage further. This is going to be made out of Thorny Crack Tier, which boosts successive attack power, and the Lightning Shrouding Crack Tier, which boosts our lightning damage. This is perfect for not just the lightning damage that the weapon's got at its base kit, but it's also really good for the spin attack, where both of the tiers from the flask do insane extra damage on top of all that we're already doing. So for the classic ritual, I'm gonna pop my Golden Vow, Howl of Shabriri, If you don't like Howl of Shabriri, you can do Flame Grammy Strength. You drink your Flask of Wondrous Physick, and essentially just spin away. 3000 damage just like that. And that is without the Millicent's Prosthesis taking effect. So I should do a little bit more damage now that I do it again. Well, he kind of ran out of health, but if I get to show you this thing on another Omen, yeah, we're at 4.5 thousand, right? And then if you want to finish them off, you see how slow it is when I do R1? It's really bad, actually. But even the basic attacks do really decent damage. So you're just gonna be burning through bosses' health bars like it's nothing. So moving on to the Lonhafted Axe. So as for the Lonhafted Axe build, it's almost going to be the same thing, except our stats are gonna go into strength instead of dexterity. This is actually a little better in terms of stat investment than the Twinaxes, because it's gonna save us extra points that we could put into vigor and still be on the same level. For Flask of Wondrous Physick, we're basically gonna keep the Lightning Shrouding cracked tier for the lightning boost. So that's gonna stay the same, but our other tier is gonna be the strength boost crystal tier. For our talismans, it's gonna be even simpler than before. We're gonna be using the same Lightning Scorpion charm from the first variation of the Twinaxe build. This time, we're gonna be using the two-handed sword talisman to enhance our basic two-handed weapon attacks a little bit more. In those moments where we cannot pull off that Ash of War attack, we're gonna be basically doing more damage with our R2 and R1 attack, which does get pretty helpful, especially when you can charge your heavy attack, because the charge heavy attack is actually pretty good, and I feel like in terms of combos, the Lonhafted Axe definitely does have better movesets than the Twinaxes. For our last two slots, it's mostly up to you. Like I said, the 4th slot always reserved for Alexander Shard, otherwise I just use the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman for extra survivability. Otherwise, the ritual is the same. We're gonna be using the Golden Vow and the Howl of Shabriri. Once we're done, we pop our Physick for the lightning boost damage. And then instead of spamming Spin to Win, we spam the other Ash of War. And finish off with a very quick R1 attack. Now you might be like, this does a little less damage than the Twinaxes, right? I would say that it is a little weaker than the Twinaxe Ash of War, for sure. But on the other hand, I would argue that the Lonhafted Axe is actually way more practical than the twin-bladed axes. It's because their R1 follow-up attacks are kind of bad. The combos don't really make sense, and you're not even using both of your weapons when using your basic attack combos, which kind of doesn't make sense to me. With the Lonhafted Axe, you don't have to worry about that. Your R1 attacks are very simple and actually really fast. They're actually way faster than the Twinaxes, which is kind of goofy. But also, the R2 is really nice. Not only is it like a really big swoop that does insane stagger damage, but it's also really fast, and if you don't want to charge your R2, it's a really fast hitting attack that does a lot of damage. Look at that stagger. Every attack, whether it's R1 or R2, is a guaranteed stagger on this big Omen creature, which just goes to show how beautiful staggering works with even the most basic attacks of this weapon. And I feel like you won't get that much of a quality of life with the Twinaxes. Another thing that I should also mention is that when you do your jumping attack Ash of War, when you jump up and do the slam throughout your jump, you actually poise through most attacks. I found it very difficult. I don't think I've even managed to get poise broken or basically staggered out of my attack when I was already in the sky slamming down my axe. At that point, as soon as you come out of your blink and you use your R2 for the follow-up Ash of War, you are basically guaranteed to land your Ash of War hit, which is awesome. And yeah, that's basically it. We got two variations for both Death Knight axes while still being able to use both of them with each build. Also, one more thing for our outfit, we're using the Malekith's Helm, Malekith's Armor, Confessor Gloves, and Fire Knight Greaves for the strength variation of this build. And for the Twin Blade variation that you've seen in the first part of the video, we're using a full set of the Death Knight armor. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and if you try this build, hope you have fun.